It was late autumn in 2018, when my now husband Lucas and I headed deep into the dense alpine forests along the German-Austrian border, completely disconnecting from civilization. We loved boondocking and setting up camp in places untouched by footprints. By the time we arrived, our phones had completely lost signal. There wasn't a single soul or a flicker of light for miles around. But something unsettling was waiting for us on the way in. As we navigated the narrow, muddy logging road into the thick of the woods, a strip of stark white cloth, tied to an old oak tree, caught my eye. Lucas slowed the truck down. A few hundred yards later, another white ribbon appeared on a branch. It looked as though someone had left markers so they wouldn't get lost. But when we reached the third ribbon, we came across an old, faded, gray 90s model Volkswagen parked on the shoulder. It was completely abandoned. The doors were unlocked and clothes were scattered all over the interior. The real chill came when I looked at the back window. Scrawled across the glass from the inside, not in blood, but in thick, aggressive black Sharpie, were the words, "Do not enter." Lucas brushed it off, assuming it was just teenagers messing around or an old car left for scrap. With the sun dipping below the horizon and it being too late to turn back, we drove about another mile deeper into the woods and set up camp by a small creek. As we sat by the fire having dinner, a persistent gnawing feeling washed over me. The sensation that we were being watched from behind the tree line. The forest was so dead silent that even the snapping of a dry twig sounded like a gunshot. By 11 p.m. we crawled into our tent. The true terror started around 2:40 a.m. I was jolted awake by a bizarre, unnatural noise. It sounded like static cutting through an old radio frequency, followed by the faint, tinny melody of a wind-up music box. The sound wasn't coming from right next to us. It echoed from somewhere deeper in the woods, up on the ridge. Lucas was awake too. "Do you hear that?" he whispered, his breathing shallow and rapid. We lay frozen, staring up at the nylon ceiling of the tent. Suddenly, the music cut out completely. A suffocating silence took its place. About 5 minutes later, the heavy, deliberate sound of footsteps echoed from directly behind our tent. Someone, or something, was walking through the mud, approaching us. The footsteps stopped right at the fabric of the tent. In that moment, my heart stopped. The only thing separating us from whatever was standing out there was a fraction of an inch of thin nylon. Lucas silently slid his hunting knife from its sheath. Suddenly, the thing pressed its hand against the tent. The fabric slowly concaved inward. It felt as if it was tracing the outline of the tent, checking to see if we were inside. We didn't even dare to breathe. Those few seconds stretched into an eternity. Finally, the footsteps dragged away, heading down toward the creek. Lucas leaned in close, his voice a barely audible breath. "Get dressed now. No flashlights." We run straight for the truck. Leaving all our gear behind, we threw on our jackets, unzipped the tent as quietly as possible, and bolted into the pitch black. The moonlight barely filtered through the thick canopy. But when we reached the truck, terror completely paralyzed us. The old abandoned Volkswagen down the road, the one that had been completely dead when we passed it, now had its high beams blaring. It had been repositioned, facing our truck directly. Through the glaring light, we could see a motionless silhouette sitting in the driver's seat. We scrambled into our truck. Lucas slammed the key into the ignition. The engine roared to life, and we tore down that muddy road without looking back. The gray car didn't chase us. Its headlights just followed us into the distance until we faded into the dark. But the absolute worst part came at dawn, when we finally reached a safe, well-lit town and got out of the truck. Tied tightly to our rear bumper was a strip of stark white cloth. They hadn't marked us as we were fleeing. They had crept up to our truck in the dead of night while we were asleep in that tent, and tied it there. We weren't alone in those woods. We had walked right into their hunting grounds, and that white ribbon was their way of letting us know that we were the next target. We never went back.